Welcome, everyone, to another new teaching show. I am joined by Laura, Maty, and Dale once again. I am in a power outage situation where I'm on my phone and cannot use video. Welcome to the show where we're going to talk about sex and all those things that go with it. Laura, how are you doing today?
When I'm not muted, I'm doing really well. Thank you, Andrew. Really good to be here. Love the subject.
You're welcome. Are you hot and bothered for today's subject?
I'm hot.
You're hot? Maty, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Just a very good thank you. There you go.
That's
And
it. Right.
the Lord of the many hands, Dale Tobin. How does it go?
Hello guys, hello everyone watching in the future, in the now. An honor again to be here, and what an interesting topic we're going to be diving deep into tonight. Look forward to it. I've been looking forward to it all day.
We'll be jumping balls deep. Ha ha ha. Double entendres are expected from everyone. Everybody, welcome to the chat room. Wherever you are, wherever you might be, we are going to be talking about sex and all the different things that come with it. The in-betweens, the deep dives, the passions, the penetrations. And as a note, our first hour will be slightly censored on YouTube. And then the second hour will be exclusive on Rumble, where we will let it rip into the terms of sexuality. So let's talk about sex today. Not just the pleasure factor. Let's start with what makes romance in sex romance. Who wants to take a stab at the romance of sex? Ooh, we got a bunch of virgins.
I'll give it. I'll give it.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm not very good at romance. Sex, okay. But romance, not
so my
good.
brain's trying to think what. So I'd say romance is having that form of a relationship with someone and being able to express themselves in that divine kind of sexuality mode without perversion or without kind of, I want to have sex with you really fast, get it done. I'd say romance is more of just being there, touching each other, allowing you to have that sensual sexual experience. And what was the question again, Andrew? The difference between
what makes sexuality the sex part of romance? What makes romance the sex part? Sexually based romance. Well, as you were saying, spooning, which is a common thing, thing. But what is a romantic sexual process that is different than the slam bam thank you ma'am?
I'd say having that heart to heart where your heart space and their heart space is connecting, and you're kind of like making a flower together, and you're in this oneness together of both of you trying to please each other in a sexual way and build each other up slowly, and respecting each other as well, not allowing one to feel kind of a bit strange, allowing you to come into a neutral way. I'd say that for me that's pure romance, being able to just express ourselves through each other and obviously have fun, have a smile.
Mm-hmm. A big grin. Laura.
Big grin, yeah.
Yeah, there's a degree of intimacy that to make the romantic bit before the sex, to have that slowness, to be in control of the timing. So it's, as you said, it's not just all rushed through. I just think that makes it, I don't know, I would have called that romance, but maybe that is a good word for it. I don't often think too much about romance. Maybe it's just my age now. I think more about the connectedness, the connection between the two of you, and also the playing before it comes to the actual act, if you like, the intense intimacy, just the having fun has got to be part of it as well, a big part of it for me.
I'm referring to the romance when you're actually deep in the penetration throes. What makes that different than the sport sex many people have, like an exercise?
would you be kind of working more on like the energetics of yourself, exploring the Kundalini, and obviously more of your own energy burst and so on?
Is a romantic partner concerned about their own orgasmic state or giving it to the others? Others, if that's your float your boat.
I'd say it's maybe like an equality there, that you're still aware of other people's pleasure, but you're wanting to.
You're light worker in this. Come on, go deeper. Show us your inner romance. Yeah, get out of the light worker mode.
Allowing yourself, I'd say that inner romance, allowing yourself to have an orgasm which is different from a regular orgasm, built up just to pure pleasure of that penetration, so to say, and finding the spot, knowing where the spot is, and being a bit of a master at doing it. And
yeah.
Also, voice and expression, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able to express and verbalize things is part of the romantic process rather than the wham bam.
Can wham bam be romantic? Go ahead, Dale. Go ahead, Maty. Sorry.
So for me, the romance part of sex itself. So pre-sex, it's always about, the romance part is about the build-up. So how long can you wait, knowing that it's going to happen, the inevitability of it, and how magical can you make those moments before, or even the hours before? You know, like what you do before is very important. But then when it comes to the actual sexual act itself, and for me, I am inclined towards very physical, athletic sex.
Sporty.
Yeah, very much so. So for me, the romance part comes with lots of eye contact, lots of gentle talk, gentle speak, and maybe a slowing of the rhythm. And it was recently I experienced it where the rhythm was so slow that it actually felt way more sexual, way more sensual than the sporty kind of rhythm. A very different kind of orgasm, but an orgasm nonetheless. But it was much more sensual, much more slow, and there's much more feeling.
What makes sports sex?
Well, there's like a non-attachment to it, isn't there? There's a non-attachment.
No.
I have
your workout partners.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, for me, sports sex is, I'm now seeing how many times I can make that person orgasm, in how many different ways, in how many different postures, and how long can I go and keep going, and how long can I test myself, you know, and reach into those parts where you can switch off the orgasm, so to speak, and just go into the actual sport of it itself. And you're doing that mainly to please the other partner.
And it doesn't have to be aggression or dominance. It can just literally be the speed and the depth in which you're working with. Okay? And the partner you're working with, they'll have a moment where the level of actual athletic exercise is taking over some of the pleasure parts, but it amplifies the later part of the pleasure journey because of the speed and the depth and the rhythm that you're creating.
So that's,
and it's
like
a lot different for the male. A lot different from the male and female then. So say for the female, they're able to go for males, it's kind of like you go do it, then you have to have a rest for a bit, then go again. So it's like then you switch
that isn't true. There are many females after their first orgasm, or even before their first orgasm, they have to take a break because they have whatever's going on in their head that's blocking that journey. And the same goes for men too. Yeah. It's all going to be about your personal experience with that particular person that's going to determine what comfort zone you're working in.
So
and also that comes down to some, for a man that's like that, if you're a woman and you don't want it to be over, there are many different ways that you can keep that scenario going. Don't let him walk off. Don't let him roll off. You keep it going, and after a few minutes, he'll be back in the rhythm.
Okay. Is playing and blowjobbing, playing, fingering, and blowjobbing before sex still considered sex, or is it the pre-lead up?
I'd say it's the same.
Yeah, I would say you could consider it sex. It depends on how long you've been in the relationship for, the place and the placement where you're doing it. Lots of different factors.
What about mutual masturbation, where you're both watching each other going through the self-pleasuring process and observing the journey and growing through energies?
It's still a sexual process, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I tend to differ. That is absolutely a part of the buildup of maintaining longer, higher frequency sexual processing, because most people in their individual masturbation process can go much longer than they can go in standard sex processes.
So it's like turning the kettle on that. And it's slowly building.
Yes.
It's like when you're doing that, you're slowly putting the handle down. Steam's coming out.
Because the whole point for mutual masturbation is to observe each other in their pleasuring journey, and what the body tells, what the mind tells, with the little tells that come through psychic impressions too. Okay, what about dirty talk versus romantically talk?
I get quite offensive, I think.
I think that's a big human thing. Yeah.
I get quite offensive.
There's certain words I say during sex that I would,
there,
there's certain words I would never say to a woman of a normal scenario, but during sex I would absolutely say those words and mean them
and
as well.
wait to the second hour on Rumble to hear those words.
Matty's got another 40 friend requests after this.
But it adds to the intensity, though. The language used.
Yes.
I think it depends on what you like. Some people do like it like that. Some people don't. We're just all so different, aren't we? What gets us going, really.
Some people aren't brave enough to do it. That's the thing, and they convince themselves that they don't like it. But yet, in a scenario where you're trying to get somebody hot and horny, there are times when somebody who might not like that kind of thing, because of how naughty it feels, that can actually be a real accentuating factor.
Yeah.
Okay. Lights on or off?
On. Always.
On.
Never off.
All the lights. Spotlights.
Yeah.
Okay. What about oral situations, cunnilingus or fellatio? And I did that for YouTube. Let me tell you.
Like what? Sorry. Put in the translator.
Tongue or mouth? There you go.
So what's the exact question?
What does oral do in the sexual journey for both partners?
It's in a spiritual sense, it's a way to consume pheromone, first and foremost. There's a lot of information there. Yeah, that's one of the most recent things that I've discovered about it.
For men who are not very good at the cunnilingus process, your tongue can act like a finger reading braille off the clitoris. Your tongue is directly connected to the back of your heart. And when you're connected to the clitoris, which is directly connected to the third eye, you have a taste of the sexual journey and the frequency that is there if you allow yourself to open up to that journey and allow the energies that are coming off the clitoris to go into the tongue, saturate the tongue, go down to the tongue at its base, and then the thymus, which is right at the base of the back of the tongue, and then into the high heart, and then into the heart. And the same thing, energy can come up out of the heart, into the thymus, into the tongue, and out the tip of the tongue, and into the clitoris.
So that's
that would apply the other way around with the penis and the third eye
exactly.
And the tip of the penis, wouldn't it?
But the tip of the penis, what it does, it's irradiating a tremendous amount of light that is absorbed in the mouth.
So what about the 69 scenario then? Would you be creating a completed circuit?
Yes, absolutely. That's why it's like that. You're intertwining your larger chi cycles in that process. Okay, but the same thing can be done through activation of the breasts and the sucking of the nipples too. and the fingering process too. It's all dependent on ultimately the position, especially when your heads are close together and your crowns are intertwined.
So that's why there's a lot of, say, disconnection, obviously, with porn and stuff like that. A lot of people are growing up and seeing it the external instead of the internal, which it truly is, where you're able to read and have an even deeper experience.
Also, when you're looking at porn, that's not real sex. That's camera sex.
Yeah. That's
something a lot of people greatly misunderstand. And when they go to have sex, they think about having camera style sex and not the actuality of it.
It fucks so... Oh, sorry, I swore. It messes so many people up. It messed me up when I was younger. It's horrible. It really is. Especially for someone growing up with hormones and going through puberty and seeing that as part of what it looks like. It really is damaging.
So the oral traditions date very, very far back. Okay? Those oral traditions have a variety of aggressive and non-aggressive energies. So from a man giving pleasure to a woman through oral, there comes a point where you must explore beyond the clitoris. Many men overdo the clitoris and overdo to the point it becomes too sensitive and they throw you off. Okay? This is where you have to learn to explore the rest of the entire area, the entire vulva, the lips, the frequencies, and understand, is it creating fluids? That's ultimately your test. Okay? So many people are unaware of that. And yet it's naturally intuitive at the same time.
Yeah. And so
the vagina and the penis are pretty simple organs to understand.
Yeah.
So a lot of people get disconnected from it and can't produce fluid anymore. Is that just a self-block within themselves where they've not had enough, or they've not been able to touch themselves, or someone touched them in the right way?
So if a woman is dry as the Sahara Desert all the time, there's something internally going wrong with it. If a man is having pre-ejaculation within a few seconds of being touched, something's wrong with an internal process. Now, pre-ejaculation or premature ejaculation and extreme dryness, those are generally mental and spiritual issues created over long periods of time that the body has now taken on as a program. This is where you have to be inventive and add fluids. Okay? Whether it's spit or something else or oils that actually do something to that area.
Well, that is the beauty of the oral sex as well on a woman, because for me it's not about trying to produce an orgasm. It really is about just bringing those fluids forth. Because sometimes in between certain sexual scenarios, you can be in a process where everybody's enjoying themselves, but yet the fluids stop producing for whatever reason as much as they were. And in that case, in that scenario, you can just take your time, explore until such a time as you realize the liquids are being produced again, and then it's go time.
Now, in many, many situations where a man is doing oral, it is the most uncomfortable position to do.
Yeah.
This is why you cannot settle for the uncomfortable position. Take the extra effort to make sure both of you are in the most comforted position. Usually put a pillow under her butt to lift it up a little bit and a pillow to the back, and you have something that raises you up so you're not constantly putting pressure on your own arms, which will then make your neck feel all weird. Any man has been in that situation knows what I'm talking about. Okay?
Falling off like shit.
Yeah, exactly. Bed, falling off.
Spinning off the bed like, oh no.
Okay? You can always flip them over as well.
You can do that. Sometimes there are some people that can't handle being flipped over. They got to be face up. Especially people who have been traumatized through other sexual traumas. They can't handle that. They have to be in a mode, in a way that they can see all the exits, all the spaces, and all the places to be able to trust that person.
And so you get a lot of people who are just missionary, and that's all they want to do. They don't do anything else.
Or they're stuck with one way of doing sex. You get 10 minutes of kissy fingering and whatever time left of penetration. Done. And unfortunately, that isn't sex anymore. What is it?
Well, there's something that we talked about a lot at work at my last job, and we call it what was the terminology we use for? We call it chore sex. So it's like,
there you go.
So it's either a favor or a chore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the most, for me personally, it's one of the most degrading ways of having sex, especially if you go through it because you haven't had it in a while and you want it, but yet you know it's being offered to you as a chore or a gift, and it just takes all of that togetherness out of it, because there's nothing worse than having sex with somebody who doesn't find you exciting.
Mm-hmm. So it's very frequency limiting.
How damaging is it that how damaging is in the ethereal world and the energy body when you're doing that with a person?
Yeah, it's
mm-hmm.
Because it's stopping the expansion, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like masturbation, but much more.
Oh, it's worse than that. It reaches a point where it creates those bodily blockages such as dryness and pre-ejaculation, premature ejaculation.
Some of this must go back to like maybe early, puberty and so on, teenage years, when you're trying to do it, quickly before anyone comes in and so on, stuff like that.
Well, children as well is a big part to play, especially when people have families and their mind just gets overtaken by what child is where, what's going on in the house, who could listen, what the daily routine is, what's got to be done next. When those things just become really repetitive in a person's mind, it's so damaging to that sexual exploration.
Also, a lot of people who are learning to masturbate, they learn to masturbate wrong. There are many, many men who have deformed penises because of improper masturbation at a very young age.
Yeah.
Okay? The same thing with women. Women become extremely desensitized. Okay? And it can take a long time for sensitivity to come back, and sometimes it doesn't.
So is that something that can be taught?
It can be and it should be, but where, when, and how does one teach that to teenagers?
I don't know, because it doesn't seem like a parental job.
It is a parental job, but most parents aren't able to do it.
Yeah. But even as broad-minded as I am, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable with that concept.
Well, they just have the video, don't they? At school, we watched in year 5 or 6, just a 30-minute video, and that was it. That's all.
Yeah. From the video from the 1960s.
Yes, yes. Bringing out the old telly, putting it in. This is a penis. This is a vagina. It goes in here.
Right. Okay. What about squirting for a woman?
It's my favorite thing.
It's not urine. So many women think it's pee. It's not. Okay. When you are wet, that's the glands producing fluids, and the glands will literally fill up to the point where you can squirt like a garden hose across the room with a thick ass stream. Okay. And then there's other kinds of orgasmic energy women create, which is the white gluey substance that comes out. That's when you're at the pinnacle creating that stuff. That is pure spirit juice when you see that.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of disconnection from that squirting, isn't there? That a lot of women think that they can't, but everyone can.
They think it's pee, or they're worried about the cleanup afterwards, or it happens and all of a sudden they try to stop it and it all just goes harder and harder and harder, and then their body shakes and then they're embarrassed. Because it's all over the walls. Eh? Don't come in with a black light later.
Black light. What are they?
What the hell happened here?
What was that, Basic Instinct or something with Sharon Stone? I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
But the
never
female
take a black light
ejaculation.
to a hotel room.
Oh no, God! You never sleep in it.
Never take a black light to a hotel room. You will be disgusted at what you see.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, female ejaculation is a interesting subject because it's one of the ones sometimes you'll hear people say that they can't do it. You'll hear women say that, they can't do it from penetration. It's purely come from clitoral. But I found that if you can use fingers in order to produce it, and there's a very, it's a very sort of, it's always the same shape that I use and the same rhythm. And
because that's the way you activate the glands to produce fluid and then to produce pressure in the fluid. Most women are unaware how to activate those particular parts of the glands naturally, or are afraid because they feel something building up. It feels like they're going to pee. Yeah. But you're not going to pee. Okay.
No.
There are thousands of little tiny holes that produce the fluid to come out, and then it fills up. And the pumping action from the man is what creates this literally like a pump action that forces pressure in there, and that pressure is what does the shotgun squirt.
Yeah. And I found that the more you do it, even when it's almost as if like she can't handle it anymore and you just keep going, it will produce more and more and more and more and more.
Quadruple the fluid amounts.
Yes, and so from that point forward then penetrative squirting happens.
Yes, usually at that point, it's already in a continuous production cycle, and as they're riding, as the penetration process begins, it'll just keep leaking out with pressure.
Yeah.
Like a waterfall.
It's my favorite.
Well, it produces a unique noise. Mm-hmm. It's natural. It's natural. Yeah, it's completely, totally natural. So there are more things to talk about when it comes to female, squirting ejaculation energy. The fear of doing it is ultimately what stops it. And it is the manual pumping that can train the body to allow it to happen. Okay? There are hundreds of sex manuals from the ancient days that talk about how to make it happen. Okay?
And so for men then, so what you're saying before was when they do ejaculate, can they just keep going, but do they stop themselves? Because it finds with men and myself, it stops, then you have to have a rest for quite a while. Is there a way to do it where you can just keep going and going?
The woman's energy can immediately turn you back on and reharden you in minutes or seconds. It's a matter, is the energy doing that?
Yeah.
That's the power that women have. Okay? You literally can milk a man dry over and over and over and over again until you suck his balls through the tip of his penis. Okay?
Oh yeah.
And what happens when, because I've had it in the past when I was younger a lot, when it hurts, so you've done it quite a bit and it starts to hurt.
Okay, that is when you are literally empty. Okay, there's nothing left, nothing left in it. Okay,
no coconut milk left in the coconut.
as well as it could also mean you've strained the prostrate and overactivated some of your own muscles there, which stops the additional production of semen or pre-ejaculation.
And I remember at one point there was a caller where they had in their, I think it was in their penis, there was like a pocket of air or something, because when the person ejaculated, the lady didn't like it or didn't want the sex, and it went back into the penis, and they had something with what happens there when a lady kind of rejects it energetically, what goes on. Is that what sometimes, because I've had that experience before a long time ago, where there's been weird things.
So what you're talking about is a pressure buildup where the journey of the way the vagina is pumping is not in alignment with the penetration process and the ridges on the penis itself. And it's so one is pushing away and one is pushing in, or they're both sucking in, and it's an improper alignment of the motion of the vagina muscles, which is also connected to the anal muscles too, which create a deeper form of activation of the sexual energies. There's a motion that begins to go on internally, both in men and women, that activate additional production journeys.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question, Andrew. I have noticed that some women get something from ejaculation, from male ejaculation. In other words, that they actually get something spiritual from the semen that enters their body. Because
Yes,
I found some
they
women
do.
actually crave the semen itself, and they want it inside them.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And it's not
And
just
then there are
a
others.
reproduction process.
No. There are others that reject it because of the ooey gooey trauma factor of cleaning up. That's a significant reason why tremendous amount of women can't handle that stuff. And then there are those that can just get over that right away, and the energy that's inside semen, when absorbed in the vagina, in the mouth, or on the skin, is so potent that it can activate the meridian flows to a very, very high motion of energy.
I thought so. Because it seemed to me that sometimes some women would be literally getting high from your semen.
And you can get high off of their juices too.
Yeah.
As well as their verbal and physical reactions that can amplify that too. The noises that both make are also a significant part of the journey.
Very much so. Very much so.
So what would you say for some male trying to build up and not ejaculate really fast? What would some of the things you'd recommend to really hold it in?
Edging,
yeah.
Can you what that is, please, Matt?
Okay, so
garden edging. Did you mean
edging is when you hold an orgasm. So when a man feels like he's about to come, and then he'll stop, and then he'll wait until he feels like he can carry on and continue. And if you can do this in a masturbatory process, you can train yourself to last longer and longer and longer.
Yes. So this is where so many people, their masturbation process is what makes them a fast dumping process.
Yeah.
This is where you have to train yourself to go very slow. Unfortunately, that does not translate to real sexual process. Okay? So you have to understand why you're training yourself slow, and understanding that slow training may not apply to every sexual situation that you're in. Okay. The other thing that can help men is, in the very beginning, you're going to feel energy from them making your penis go hard. Send that energy back into them. When you feel energy coming into you, you can absolutely send it back into them with some of your own energy to turn them on more, to delay your fuse that you know will not last long. Okay? You know, I just think everybody that's had regular sexual experiences knows what I'm talking about. When their energy reaches into you and activates you, okay? There's a process where you're not rejecting it. You're taking it, amplifying it, and giving it back to them, knowing that this is going to be a continuous cycle and a continuous cycle. That's another way to understand how to prepare your body for longer term journeys. And understand it's not all about the penis into the vagina. Okay? That's the most important thing. You can absolutely be in a very high sexual situation where kissing, fingering, oral, etc., are what will make you last longer. Okay? Making sure that that person has the orgasm before you, if not 2 or 3, when it comes to the man to the woman. Okay? There are just so many men, the desire is so crazy, they want to get in and want to get in and want to get in. Slow it down. Okay? And for women, letting the man do it versus immediately taking over and not realizing you're going to drain them dry and the experience isn't going to be good. And then if you want a sport screw, tell them ahead of time. Okay? Okay?
Yeah, set up some rules.
Okay. Unfortunately, Cynthia, breath practice rarely works in an actual real sexual situation. Okay? The partner's going to go, what the fuck are you doing? Okay,
They're like,
I'm light working my breath right now.
just, hold on, bitch. I'm like,
Just playing.
what about Viagra? So what's that like? I've taken it probably twice in my life. What was it like from your perspective, Andrew, and what good and what harm does it do?
Unfortunately, there are a lot of young kids that take Viagra and fuck themselves up long term. So what Viagra does is it convinces the body to enlarge the phallic area and engorge it with blood for extended periods of time. And yes, it can feel great, but there are all sorts of injuries that can come from it. Injuries that I don't want to just talk about or describe. You can figure it out. Okay?
Yeah, go.
Okay? You can figure it out. Okay?
I had a guy who I knew when I grew up. He snapped his banjo from it.
I don't want to talk about that.
There you go.
But it's also become a process where it's become a scapegoat for people that do drugs, like things like cocaine, things like that, where you can lose your erection quite easily, and then people are they're doing the drugs and then the stimulants, and then they're also doing the Viagra, and so if these a lot of young people, by the time they reach into their sort of mid-20s, then they lose the ability to have a natural hard-on.
That's right. Without the drugs, they can't get into that love frequency.
Yeah.
And what's happening, Andrew, in a scenario when, just going back to what we were saying before, men who come too quickly, so to stop themselves doing that, they think about something completely different.
No, that doesn't usually work. Thinking differently just takes you out of the mode.
Out of the
You
whole
gotta
frequency,
strategize.
Yeah.
You have to strategize differently. Okay,
So
that's where you gotta give the oral extended periods.
Yeah.
Find that comfortable position for both of you, so you can go down and not have a 20-minute lunch break, but an hour and a half lunch break.
Yeah. And sometimes you can find that once a man has ejaculated once, it will be a longer period until the next one. So sometimes you may want to get that first ejaculation done in an oral sex scenario or something like that, and then immediately then go into a sort of sexual scenario. That can help, but it's not always perfect.
You got to know your partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you feel like you're going to bust it straight away, just bust it and then carry on.
See, I would say differently. At that point, send the energy back and turn them on and make sure you're on a turning them on process, so that you can save some of your personal sexual energies and let it build up into you. But you just got to know the tipping point inside you where holding back too much is not good for you.
Yeah.
Okay? It'll give you the blue ball scenario.
Yeah. And the longer you do wait, the better it is. Let's face it.
Yes.
Because it builds up and builds up and builds up, and there'll be more.
Exactly. And then, like I said, you got to know the fine line, which is too long.
It's always the best when I find I do like a day of like ceremonial, like when I do ceremonies and stuff after hours and hours of doing it after that, it's like the best. When I've had a full day of doing quite spiritual, high energy stuff, and after that, it's like the best time for me.
Okay. That's just a good segue to talk about sacred sexuality.
Yes.
What is sacred? What is sacred sexuality?
Putting a bit of incense on it, then doing it.
Shakti, Shakti.
Putting on a bit of Nagshamba here, Nagshamba there. Is that light work enough for you?
So sacred sexuality for me is something that I haven't actually experienced with another person. I mean, I have to an extent, but not to my greater understanding of what it is. It's something that I've been able to do by myself, but I think it would require two people to be within a spiritual hygiene process at least.
That was a light worker
We're
guess.
on a self-mastery journey.
Light worker guess.
Light worker guess.
We're all getting stickers.
Yeah. I'll give you my definition of sacred sexuality. willing to use your spiritual journey, i.e., the orgasm at the end creates a way for you to intertwine and journey together and share a dream space, share a post-orgasmic vision space. And you do that by finding what gets you close. We've all had that experience where you're glued together during the journey, after the journey. It's like literally glue is sticking you to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is when you reach that passion level that's creating a magnetic attraction between all the different meridian points in the body and blending where the skin connects to each other. And the journey to get there can be both profane, it can be unnatural, it can be natural, but the ultimate journey at the end is, have we created that sticky energy where we're done at the end, we share a limited telepathy. We share, anyone that's had really good sex knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was about to say,
you share an inner knowingness about each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I definitely have experienced it, well, and I call that melting. Yeah.
Now, so what does make it sacred? You go with the intention, both of you go with the intention of creating that. Okay? And that could take days to build up, not minutes.
So would this be crossing into Tantra then, with the build-up like that?
So Tantra has absolutely been bastardized worse than Reiki. What Tantra is taught in modern society today is not Tantra, just like Reiki is not Reiki as of today. Okay? It's mostly garbage 60 sexuality stuff thrown into there with a little bit of Qigong behind it. It's garbage, garbage, garbage. Okay? And for the Tantric masters out there, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay? Okay? Real Tantra is about holding orgasm for days and weeks and months at a time, aligned to the moons and the stars. That ain't Tantra, as usually we learn today. Okay? And then having multiple partners to get that moment where the unique astrological signs line up, so you could have 7, 8, 9, 10 orgasms, which creates hypervisionary space. That's real Tantra. Using sexuality to amplify the spiritual experiences that you have when you're not engaged in sexual partners.
Interesting.
So ordinarily, would an orgasm create higher consciousness?
Yes, it's what it's built in for. It's its mechanical purpose. It's your immediate, here's your mystical experience button.
Yeah.
When I figured that out, I couldn't believe it.
Sorry, Maty.
It's okay, no. So when I figured that out, I couldn't believe it, because originally it was obviously a process of haunting. So the sexual process was a way in for particular haunting scenarios. And once I was brave enough to be able to, once I dealt with that situation to a level, and I was brave enough to re-experience it, I realized that the reason that was such a haunting scenario is because the amount of light that's being produced. So if I was able to, before I went into one of my ceremonial processes or my ritualistic processes, I would use masturbation and edging, but do it in a way that wasn't thinking about a scenario, wasn't actually thinking about somebody or projecting any energy.
Yeah, but that's actually diffusing your energies. That's not actually raising your frequencies.
What by holding the thought?
No, by the masturbation process. If you're trying to raise your light, hold on, let me finish. If you're trying to raise your light and frequencies in a longer term sacred sexuality situation with a partner, you have to do body gazing together that isn't touching together. Okay? And this is where eye contact, physical contact, amplify that gluey energy. You're not intending to create penetration days and weeks ahead of time. It's the sensuality touch in which you're trying to amplify in such a unique way. When the act does come, it's one touch is 1,000 touch. It's lightning strikes going through you.
So all these different levels of intimacy, whether it's weeks, days, or months beforehand, on that level, help build up the frequency as you go along.
For visionary process, but not all stuff is for visionary process. Okay, there are stuff for bliss sakes. Therefore, your cycle is not on an astral 30-day or 60 or 90-day astrological chart. It's on a weekly chart. Okay, and the chart that you would follow would, all right, your energy and their star signs, et cetera, align to this date. This is a date you try it twice or 3 times in a week. Why? Because it will amplify your energies for the next week, which you might try 2 and 3 times a week again, and 2 and 3 weeks again, until that astrological sign moves off, and then you take a week or 2 break. But that energy will be amplified for months flowing through you, which is how we achieve the bliss state, even though we have to live natural lives.
And I guess actually gives you a very healthy body, or can contribute.
Yes, it can.
Contribute greatly to your well-being.
It can end depression. Even many of those psychological situations, which could include even stuff like some of the other greater things beyond not multiple personalities, schizophrenia. That's another way it could absolutely be used to end schizophrenia, or to change schizophrenia in such a way where its frequency volume in which it takes over begins to fade away.
Wow.
It really is so important to our
Amazing.
well-being.
Mind,
body, spirit.
See, there comes a point where traumatization is, especially during sex abuse, like especially at a young age, there's an opposition to the creating of the energy from the trauma that's really had. And one will need to, if they're the person that was abused, do the inner work on intimate touching and penetration and et cetera, but the other person has to know that there's a trauma there, so that they don't trigger you. Okay, you don't need to tell them the gory details, but they need to know how to handle you. Okay, and there are many situations in which abused people expect the mystical sexual healing to come, and an orgasm will clear it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Are there times that an orgasm can push it far away? Yes, but it will creep back. And that's where you can use an orgasm energy right afterwards, in the days and weeks following it, to do the hard work, because the hard work is so much easier now that you have the chemical flow through you of bliss.
So I've had a conversation, Andrew, with a few males who basically were saying when they ejaculate, they kind of lose the energy, but I found it different when you do it. It kind of gives you more energy, and it heals you really, really in depth, and you have lots of energy after. So there's a lot of people who think when you give it, it's like giving it away, but it's not. It's internal into yourself, isn't it?
Unfortunately, a lot of men, when they orgasm, they are give. They don't have an open reception side for the energy to be given back to them. It's a one-way frequency, and it's just a bad habit that takes over. Okay? They lose their greater mental awareness that you're entwined with this person. And yes, your orgasmic situation is so intense, and you're pumping and pumping, but you're not allowing anything to come back in. The long pause. Does everybody want a cigarette now?
Processing all of that meat and veg, all of those meats and veg.
I'm just blown away by how many layers there are to this.
There's even more layers if you really want to go into it. It's just a matter of what are you going to process now and understand now, and what are you going to process and understand a few days, weeks, and months from now. And then what might you try when you choose to be adventuresome?
Yeah.
So if anybody's got any questions as well in the chat, who wants to ask any questions, we've not had many questions this show. Feel free to ask away.
They're probably like us. They're probably blown away.
They're probably just like...
All right, let's talk about bodies, the body itself. What does it mean when a woman's toes curl during sex? A body reaction like that.
I'm trying to think of the unlight worker one to say.
What does it mean when they have the shakes afterwards?
I'd say that's a big somatic release, a body release where they're getting rid of just...
It's a somatic
basically-
release, a very positive somatic sexual release.
Yeah.
It's a big compliment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, literally, it's not a negative somatic release. It's a positive somatic release when the body begins to shake like that. Okay? That's the fascia tied up, unwinding, and taking in positive sexual energy, flooding it all throughout the different fascia systems.
It's beautiful, and one of my favorite things to do is just to stroke them when that happens as well. So if they're in that point where it's and then just gently stroke on the areas that are doing that, and it doubles the tremors.
Yes, and for women to let you know, that situation where you're in that shaky, trembling energy can go for hours if you let the person do it for you, and it will put you in the highest blissful visionary state you've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your birthright to have that happen. Cynthia said once her whole body flopped like a fish. Yeah. Okay. That's a good thing. Greatest compliment. Along with the squirt. Greatest compliment for a man. Exactly.
You also
Where are you
look
going?
really good
Where are you going?
afterwards.
Just flopping everywhere.
You look
Yeah.
really good afterwards normally. You normally have a lovely, sort of colour to the cheeks and so on. Just a glow.
Cigarette in the mouth.
Yep, cigarette in the mouth.
Back, Ashley.
Just smiling.
The unique grin.
Yes.
What are some of the other body reactions men have?
I'd say again, the toes curling, the feet moving. I'd say shaking as well. It can have shaking like a full-on.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you build it up, it just lasts for ages inside and just starts shaking for ages and lasts a lot longer basically than a usual one.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they're not really touchable after that. When
Uh-huh.
they keep going and the body keeps shaking. And this is a while afterwards.
Mm-hmm. The best thing that happens is if you both have that shaking energy and you have orgasm at the same time. Eyes rolling back from the pleasure. Yeah, that's a big compliment. Okay? We will be going live on Rumble in 5 minutes where we get to take off the chains of censorship and have raw talk.
Got quite
Wash
a lot
off your
of questions
screens.
Already.
Wash off your screens.
ready. Get your black flashlight out.
Exactly. Get your black light out.
We're going to inspect.
What else does the body tell you? There's a hum, an energy, a vibration afterwards too. A purring energy, like a cat.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? That's when the body has reached its high bliss state and the mind is beginning to take that high bliss state and add it to more and more and more.
Are there any techniques of hanging on to that energy?
Oh, body massage.
Okay.
Adding oils that have a menthol heat process to it, but doesn't have a burn to it. Anal stimulation too, without penetration, can also do that too, because the butt is a very big part of sexual processes for both men and women.
Why did the human skin suit get created with that up where obviously, you excrete your feces? Was it like a what's the because a lot of people
The
get put
prostate.
off by that. Yeah, well, obviously having
God's
joke.
God's joke on man.
That's what I mean. It's like someone had a joke. Like could have put 2 holes.
A gift to homosexuals, mate. A gift to homosexuals.
Okay. All the organs are tied together there.
Yeah.
If I were on Rumble, I'd say something else, but I got to wait 3 more minutes. Let's go back to body reactions. Okay. Beyond the shaking. What does grunting and groaning mean?
Like you're having a good time.
Yeah.
The uncontrollable grunting and groaning.
Yeah.
That's carnal energy.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference between carnal sexuality and sacred sexuality. When you enter that carnal state, your DNA has been activated. Primal, animal energy, exactly.
So I have a lot of that, Andrew, and I find myself doing things, the grunting, but also I have side effects like drooling, and also I don't feel pain, so I can finish the process and then realize what I've just done to my body. I can just completely block out physical pain. Yeah.
But that's a negative thing you've brought into yourself.
Yeah, I thought so.
No.
But it's part of that primal.
Sorry.
No, you went too far into the primal. That's all it means.
really, yeah.
But that some of that can still be sacred as well.
Absolutely. There's a way to take the primal energy and make it sacred. Absolutely there is. Both partners have to be in agreement, though, and have to at least some semblance of a plan. You can't go no plan into that energy and just see what evolves, because the energies will draw you into someplace else. And if you don't have a plan to not necessarily just control, but strategize how you use it, where you use it, the position you use it in, so that there's an idea, all right, I may need to stay in this position and move to this position, then I'll finally be able to lie down on the side and lift her leg up and go from the back there. And I won't have to have all that weight on my legs and my lower back. Okay? You got to know that part too. That's where the carnal energy doesn't allow the higher thinking.
So would a degree of roughness, consensual roughness, be more carnal?
It can be, but unfortunately in this modern society, roughness has been bastardized by porn. Okay? And some of the way the previous generations did sexual acts.
And so for harvesting entities and those people who heavily watch porn, and obviously there's a lot of ghosts around them, parasites and so on. What's the process? Is it kind of like, are they waiting for them to push the energy out so they can harvest it basically? When they're about to orgasm, they just have a little bit of a taste of it.
Oh no, harvesting energy is inside your body, taking it right from the core. Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or influencing the carnal side to do something and change the energy and taint the energy into something else.
And I think it's so big. Like you go, when I used to work at places, it was like 95% of people watch porn, and everyone did. It was kind of like the stuff they didn't do, but so many people don't realize how damaging it is and how fucking dirty it is.